I'm standing on the most contaminated piece of real estate in the world outside of Russia. I'm in Hanford, Washington on the Columbia River, and it is so contaminated because of waste left over from the production of nuclear weapons. We've got an area that is contaminated in the groundwater and is migrating towards the Columbia River. And if it gets there, Leslie, we have an absolute disaster on our hands.
What makes all this even worse is how badly the U.S. government has botched the cleanup. Albert Einstein once defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Well, that's what critics accuse the Energy Department of, making the same mistakes over and over in a project that has already squandered billions of dollars in taxpayers' money. But the risk here is far greater than financial, since it involves highly toxic nuclear waste. What's at stake are millions of gallons of radioactive liquid waste left over from the making of nuclear bombs, including the one that was dropped on Nagasaki. This waste has been sitting in tanks in Hanford, Washington ever since, while the government tries to figure out how to clean it up. Some of it has already leaked out of the tanks into the ground. It is so lethal, a small cup of it would kill everyone in a crowded restaurant in minutes. We recently visited the place where the witch's brew is being stored.
I'm standing on the most contaminated piece of real estate in the world outside of Russia. I'm in Hanford, Washington on the Columbia River, and it is so contaminated because of waste left over from the production of nuclear weapons. There are 53 million gallons 53 million gallons of highly radioactive liquid waste stored in underground tanks that are now so old they have leaked 1 million gallons of this stuff,
some of it into the groundwater, and it's heading right for the river. So with 1 million people downstream, there's a sense of urgency about cleaning up Hanford, which is huge. It takes up 586 square miles in southeastern Washington. But for the Energy Department that runs the project, it's been a case of easier said than done. In the nearly 16 years we've been covering the story, it's been one foul-up after the next.
What is this?
Charles Anderson, the Energy Department's official overseeing nuclear cleanup, gave us a tour of what has been built so far at Hanford, starting with a replica of the underground tanks.
This is a model of tanks that are already built that have waste in them. Be careful with your head here.
Okay.
As we go in.
Oh my.
It can hold 750,000 gallons of waste. Many of the tanks, built for the Manhattan Project, are more than 60 years old.
How many tanks like this are there?
Well, we have a total of 177 tanks with household waste at this site.
The plan is to pump the waste out of the tanks and route it through miles of pipes
And this is the canyon.
to this yet-to-be-completed pre-treatment facility. The idea is to convert the radioactive waste into glass logs.
This is where the radioactive waste will come from the tank farms, will come from those tanks. So we'll come in here and be treated, different chemical processes, and turned into glass logs for final disposition and to be disposed of in a landfill.
Now, the last time I was here was 2001. This wasn't here at all.
Now, this was a field out here.
So do you consider that you've made a lot of progress? How would you...
Insignificant progress. Plant's 35% complete in regard to construction.
But wait,
This is a total ghost town. What happened here?
what happened here is that after 3 years of welding, pouring cement, and laying miles of pipes and tons of steel, construction came to a screeching halt last year because the Energy Department underestimated by 40% how strong the building must be to withstand an earthquake. We're talking about a building that'd be full of radioactive liquid. Jean Aloise is with the GAO, Congress's investigative arm.
In a building like this, you need to build it to ensure that it withstands whatever an earthquake may pose, if there is one, because we absolutely do not want a breach of this radioactive material in the atmosphere.
But here's what we have learned, that the Energy Department and the contractor Bechtel went ahead with the plant knowing their seismic standard might be off. Just as construction was about to begin in July of 2002, an independent safety board sent this letter warning the department.
Energy debated with the safety board for almost 2 years over the standards. And
Okay, let me understand this. This is brought up as an issue in 2002. Instead of going back right then, they debate until 2005, during which time they're building the building?
they're building the bill.
Building it with the wrong seismic standard. Because they did factor in some margin of safety, the contractor Bechtel has told the Energy Department there is no restructuring required on the foundation or the walls. But
What they do have to fix is the internal components of the building. Hangars, piping, vessel supports, all of this interior of the building, where the technology is going to rest, that all has to be re-engineered. They have to review tens of thousands of designs.
the seismic miscalculation is costing at least $800 million and a 2 to 4 year delay in completing the building. This practice of pushing ahead with construction before the engineering is complete is known as fast track.
The people in the state of Washington who are living with this thing, they don't want it to slow down. They want it to speed up.
But it doesn't work, in our view, on complex technical nuclear facilities like the ones at Hanford.
So what do you tell the people of Washington? You're going to have to live with that gunk leaking?
That we need to do it right.
Fast track was singled out as a major problem 5 years ago when we last reported on the cleanup. Gary Jones, a GAO investigator in 2001, told us about how they had rushed ahead with construction of this building at a similar site.